KK Reaper.
And I'm Luna Reaper.
And this is A Frightful Eve. This evening, we will be reviewing The Nun II, about an evil that spreads through 1956 France as a priest is murdered, and Sister Irene once again comes face to face with the demonic nun Valak.
But first, the horror news.
Mid-Atlantic Event Group is bringing an immersive experience to Mooresville, Pennsylvania. The Haunted Halloween Drive-In Theater will be showing some classic horror favorites on select dates from October 4th through Halloween night. Once you've entered through a creepy stretch of road, be prepared as your favorite horror villains come to life stalking through the lot. Tickets are on sale now.
It's always important to play by the rules in the elevator game. Our main character Ryan joins a group of friends that run a web series dedicated to debunking urban legends. This episode is dedicated to a game where players must ride an elevator, landing on each floor in a specific order in order to invoke the fifth floor woman. What his new friends don't know is that Ryan's sister went missing while playing this very game.
Everyone's favorite killer doll will be returning to our home screens and apparently the White House for the third season of Chucky on October 4th. Devon Sawa returns as the President of the United States, James Collins. Chucky has found his way into the first family's home in the arms of the president's youngest son. Our lead protagonists, Jake, Devon, and Lexi, must devise a plan to get into the most powerful office in the world to stop Chucky from whatever it is he is up to now. You can check out the season premiere on the Sci-Fi and USA networks.
The Strangers will be getting a reboot trilogy. The first story will depict a couple on their way to start a new life in the Northwest. Although their journey is brought to a halt by car troubles that land them in Oregon, Airbnb is to the rescue for shelter and somewhere to rest. It is possible that our leading couple will not see their next chapter as a group of masked home invaders notice the lights on and the doors unlocked. With little information on the rest of the series, we can at least anticipate that it has been announced for global release. This soft reboot has been described by Collider and Dread Central as a heavy backstory series. Could our murderous trio have more of a reason for choosing their victims other than because you were home?
It has been 50 years since The Exorcist shocked and appalled moviegoers with horrific imagery that would be revolutionary for the time. David Gordon Green will bring that very demon that haunted us back to the big screen for the sixth installment of the franchise and direct sequel to The Exorcist. The Exorcist Believer follows two girls from different families afflicted by the same possession Regan McNeil had faced all those years ago. Ellen Burstyn is even set to reprise her role as Chris McNeil, Regan's mother. This next exciting chapter will hit theaters on October 13th.
It is so exciting to see Halloween hitting the shelves again. While Spirit Halloween and Michaels have buyers running, this time of year is just as good as any to support a small business. Today, the spotlight is on Rattlehead Crafts. This business, based in Los Angeles, does a wonderful job at creating vintage Halloween with a modern twist. Rattlehead's most recognizable prints consist of clowns, devils, pumpkins, and skeletons, with a rich color palette of orange, black, red, green, and purple. While decorating, don't forget to shop small this year.
For more information on these events, check out the links in the description below.
And now for the review of The Nun II.
Well, Valak returns once again.
They always do.
A relatively okay second entry into the series. It was okay.
Yes, that's what's so hard about this.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the installments that really didn't rock our socks off, didn't make us hate this part of the franchise. I do think I know that we talked a little bit about it, that you were more on board with the first one than the second.
I was, which I know is a hot take. I know a lot of people despised
the first one. Yeah, the first one was definitely, I thought it was okay. The same way. It's strange how this particular part of the franchise seems to be so plateaued compared to the other entries in The Conjuring universe is like really well done.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the Nun and the Nun II just sort of sit there. And I don't know exactly, I can't put my finger on why it doesn't pop out the way the other ones do.
I don't know if it's the passion in production, I'm not sure. But, I mean, if anyone who's a horror fan at all remembers the first Conjuring movie, which I loved, will always be a favorite of mine. And I don't know if it's just, business ruining the creativity or the lack of influence from Ed and Lorraine now that they are officially both passed.
Right.
I wonder.
Right. Yeah, that first installment when The Conjuring first came out was it was amazing. I remember coming home from the movie theaters and
terrified.
Yeah, I turned on all the lights in the house.
Yeah.
I
didn't want to hear anyone clap.
Right. Oh man, the clap game. Yep. So, obviously you have a cash grab immediately because that being the huge hit that it was, they're of course going to make sequels, and I think they wanted to go that direction anyway with the universe because they obviously had a lot of ideas for different demons and different parts of the storyline,
right?
And some of it based in real life accounts,
sure,
so to speak,
right?
So there's a lot of material to work with, but. Nevertheless, I guess let's get into the meat and potatoes of the Nun II and what we got from it and what we didn't get from it.
I mean, to compliment it, I'll always love how Valak looks.
Yes.
Great look, great face, creepy as hell.
Yep. Valak is definitely a great design for the demon itself, and I think a lot of the scare factor from her character especially in this one, you mentioned the use of Valak in obscure shots and things like shrouded in the darkness and you could only see the eyes in certain respects.
I do think even though we didn't have a lot of one-on-one battles with Valak that lasted a while, I do think that this demon was there often and in the background if you were looking, and I did enjoy that, where especially the scene when Sophie was going up the staircase, assuming that she was following her mother, and Valak is in the background more than you think, and I think it creeps you out because if you're with a group in the theater, you are going like, did you see that? Did everyone see it? Because you see it.
Right.
So I do think they did a great job as paying attention to every inch.
Yeah, and hiding in dark corners and kind of just obscuring it just enough for, like you said, if your friend notices it and then all of you notice it, it's like oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And I think that was effective in the pursuit of the jump scares as well, where normally that is, it's always consistent throughout horror. There's always at least something like that. And with the Conjuring universe, something that I personally have always looked for was the creep factor, because of the fact that you have so much to work with possession and, exorcist type deal, things that are more disturbing than shocking. And I think the fact that things are so shrouded the way they are and the way that they build up suspense in this particular movie, it works effectively with jump scares. It doesn't feel like, oh my god, here it goes again. There was a decent amount of things that, a decent amount of scares that happened in this movie that still managed to make me jump, even though I knew it was coming, and even though I knew what to expect, because of the way that the scene is framed up. Just the way that they held on to that suspense was really well done.
What's your favorite jump scare?
Yeah. Why don't you enlighten the audience?
Well, you know, as we know, we always have to leave the crowd hoping that the demon's easily defeated. So naturally, what else would stop a demon besides chaining it up and, you know, giving that to rest? And they chain up Frenchie, aka Maurice. And there's a crow that may have happened to fly by and really have gotten you.
I wasn't fully paying attention at the exact moment that it happened. The crow was exceptionally loud. And the Dolby Atmos added a little rumble.
Sure.
To, you know, they just a whole 4D
we were fancy.
Experience. Oh yeah,
very fancy this time. Got a little back massage.
Right. Back massage from the demons.
Thank you. Oh my god, that was a treat. Thank you very much.
I definitely, the side note, I definitely recommend Dolby Atmos and those other features that AMC offers if you ever get the chance to check that out. It's very interesting. It's not too overwhelming like 4D, but it adds a certain effect to horror films especially.
Not sponsored, but willing to be.
Right.
I thought that was good. I thought they went pretty shocking with other things as well. They really went for the kids.
Yeah.
In this film.
You know, and when we were discussing this review prior, I had mentioned to you that Dread Central mentioned something about how they felt that this movie played it so safe. And I thought, you know, is it the most shocking thing in the world? Like, is it
Terrifier?
Terrifier? Of course it's not Terrifier. No. It's Warner Brothers. Like, they're not gonna go that route. But, you know, Valak comes for that one delivery kid, and you don't get to see what happens, but the head explosion, presumably, or whatever happens up to the upper body, there is blood everywhere. And that's like one of the opening sequences, and you're just like, wow.
I think that's the last thing that'll get us, like, oh, they put that in the movie? Usually in movies like this, one kid may get it, or like, you know, the kids will get really scared, but they end up going for their teachers anyway. But this time, like, they were taking those kids out left and right, my gosh.
Right.
Or at least traumatizing them, that poor altar boy.
The one that witnessed the priest burning? Yeah. That was another thing, too. You know, there's some value, I feel like, lost on the idea of, you know, lighting a priest on fire in 2023 versus, like, you know, The Exorcist in 1973. But that in and of itself is, like, still, it's a decent shock from a Hollywood movie, you know? They execute it very well. Haha.
Oh my gosh.
And there was a great amount of effects in there that seemed like they were done either practically or otherwise maybe mixed with, you know, practical and CGI combined. That I was impressed by. I did like the fact that they took out Madame with her own son.
That was cool, yeah.
Which is another kind of twisted concept, and, you know, the ghost, or the demon-possessed version ghost of her son, I guess.
I assumed demon disguised as her son.
Or something along those lines, right, yeah. I guess that would be more likely the case. Swinging that, I still don't know the word for it.
It's the incense holder.
Right, the incense holder for the church. And the blood hitting the camera when she gets hit with it in the head.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, you know, it's much more visceral than just like a faraway pan or cutting away from that sort of action.
Right, and they have Valak behind her son, you know,
right,
puppeteering
exactly.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
I thought that looked pretty great. And I liked how the goat looked.
The goat was, decently creepy.
I do say, and I've said this a million times, and I'll say it to you guys, I do feel like this movie particularly gave more of a video game feel in the sense of there was your main task, which was defeat Valak, and then it became like mini bosses for the mega boss. And the goat may have felt like a bit of a mini boss to me just because I would have made more sense to me if they threw it more in the beginning and got it over with, where they really threw it in like the action of what we thought was the final fight. But nonetheless, I still like how it looked.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, it's entertaining in its own individual right per demon that you're fighting and through the different sequences that they go through. But I definitely agree with what you're saying, where the first one, from what I can recollect, had this linear storyline that only revolved really around the nun. And it brought us up to where The Conjuring was on its own.
Yes.
So, you know, one of the things that we talked about too was the fact that technically the Nun II didn't really have to happen in order for the Conjuring universe to include Valak. So this, in a way, almost feels like a sequel video game where, like, you know who the main boss is, and it's like, well, you fought her once, now you gotta fight her again, but this time there's mini bosses, and we have not the blood of Christ, but we have the eyes of Lucy, the patron saint of the blind, and that's the new artifact that's gonna destroy your main antagonist.
Yes.
You know, I like the storyline. I like that addition of the patron saint because that in and of itself was kind of creepy. The eyeless painting and the idea that the pagans stabbed the eyes out, and all of that kind of ties in very nicely, but it definitely gives that sense of here's your objective, here's your weapons that you have to find in order to kill the main boss, and that's how we get to our conclusion. Which
would have been cool. I do think it was great when they got the eyes. I do think it began to do the whole like, oh, they defeated them. Oh, no.
Right.
Okay, they got the eyes. Oh, Valak took the eyes.
Yep.
Now they're floating. Oh, they have wine.
Right. Oh, they have wine.
They're praying over the wine. Okay, now it's Jesus' blood. Like,
yeah.
There was a point where it's like, demon's dead? No. Yes? No.
I know that there was some disagreement with my stance on the kind of cheesiness of that factor. You felt as though it was something that's a little bit more commonplace in horror films, where I thought that was kind of
okay. Yeah.
The whole what's her name? The friend.
Oh, Sister Debbie.
Yeah, Sister Deborah. With Sister Irene and Sister Deborah on the train, and Sister Deborah is the the rebel of the abbey, I guess, and she's just like, oh well, convent, I guess. Yeah, right. That would make more sense. Yes, that's right. And she's like, oh well, the priest just says some words over wine, and it's still just wine at the end of the day. And Sister Irene's like, well, you just have to have faith.
Right.
And ultimately, that's what kills Valak.
Right.
To me, is that same sort of lackluster rush to the finish line as It Chapter 2. You know, it gets bullied to the point of deflation and just fizzles out. Right.
And I think it is one of those where, like, I see what you're saying. I do think that it does make sense in the whole point that, like, demons exist, demons challenge us, demons possess us in the sense of we are weaker, we're lacking of faith, so on and so forth. I do think other movies have done it better. I remember when we were discussing one of my favorite possession movies will always be The Rite, which I know, whether people are familiar or not, is the same sense of you have someone going to be part of the faith, they're wavering, they get in trouble. I do think there's a less tackier way to do it other than like the love of God.
Right.
But it does make sense to me that that's what defeated the demon.
Yeah. At the end of the day, everything that it deals with some level of exorcism, possession, demons, things of that nature, it's always defeated by like the good, whatever the good may be. Oftentimes, when it takes that religious aspect, and especially in a movie called The Nun, it's going to have that element. It just felt like you got to the very end, there was so many opportunities, like you were saying, there were so many opportunities for Valak to just die.
Yeah.
And you chose the barrels of wine becoming the blood of Christ because Deborah now believes to be the thing that snubs her out.
Which I feel like is always the point. Whenever they throw in a character that's like, oh, I got forced into this position with the church or, you know, religion or whatever, but I don't buy that. I feel like, you know, we know that character is going to end the movie with like
I believe now. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And we talked a little bit too about the mother just getting kind of thrown in there as well.
Because you have to have mommy issues to do stuff.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
And there's always got to be that entity of light behind you.
Right.
Because you can't do anything on your own.
No.
It's got to be supernatural good fighting supernatural evil at the end of the day.
Yes. Which I really, again, that were another thing that I feel like they just threw in. Right. Where once I saw it coming, when Sister Irene started having visions of her mother, I was
like the flashback sequences, yeah.
All right, Mom's dead. What happened?
What happened?
What happened? And,
Mom's dead.
And it's the mom saying that she sees visions of God or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those. It's so funny to think about in perspective. I always imagine this perspective of father where your daughter grows up being like, Mom saw things, and you'd be like, I know.
Right.
We tried to make it work.
Oh man, yeah. Always be the one that's on the outside looking in is always going to have the roughest time in that situation. God. As we learned with the Insidious franchise. The same, it all ties in. But yeah, the storyline up until that point was a lot more captivating than we're probably making it sound. It just felt like, that tilting off point was where it was, you got to the end of the movie and it felt like, all right, blood of Christ, again, the second time around, that's how you did it the first time. I thought the eyes were going to be the thing that stopped it.
But it took the eyes.
Yeah.
And then it got contacts in. So now it has different powers.
Yeah. The contacts, that was the only thing that
I think I talked about that before.
Yeah, yep. Everything else, I mean, that was another saving grace too, was the effects, the kills, all in all, like, solid movie, was a good watch. Maybe watch it one more time. Go, throughout all of that. It's the lackluster ending for me, and it's the some of the CGI stuff.
Yeah, I think this is one of those movies that I would call a theater movie. Like, would you have fun watching in the movie theater? Sure.
Right.
Would I put this on at home if I really want to have a good, like, horror movie night? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of just ends on that note. It's like this... like you said, the theater experience was great. The only other time I could see myself watching this is if I was going to watch the Conjuring universe as like a collection.
Right.
Just to get the full image. But again, the only thing that really ties it in is her in the hallway. Which
I really liked that scene. That was really cool.
That's honest. If they took the elements of this one and just combined it into the Nun 1 and made the Nun 1 like a little bit longer, I think that would have been the solid take.
KK.
I think if you just cut out a lot of the
Luna.
Cut out the fat, essentially.
Sure.
KK and Luna Reaper.
What Bartholomew?
What is the final verdict?
The Nun II offers up an interesting conclusion to the Valak entry of the Conjuring franchise. It amps up the action and suspense in the first installment and makes effective use of jump scares, disturbing imagery, and plot progression to make Valak's reign of terror over an entire continent all the more terrifying.
Though some of the writing tends itself to be a little lackluster or cheesy, as well as the use of certain CGI effects and the overall lack of Valak taking the forefront of her own movie, it is nonetheless entertaining with its much more brutal handling of kills and battle sequences, and for that, we give this film a 7 out of 10.
That's our show. Thanks for tuning in.
And until next time, Ghosts and Ghouls, have a frightful eve.